Dum 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 dum. I forgot to take the thing
Whoops.
away. Where are we? There we are.
See what happens when you let people who drive on the left side
I was
of the
busy
road.
dancing. Leave me alone. Oh dear. Welcome everyone. I hope everyone had a
All right.
merry, happy holidays, Christmas, whatever.
Oh yes. So how's my volume here?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, they're somehow the let applications yank your volume up and down got checked. So sorry about last week.
Let me just.
Only took me a week to find it, mainly because I was gone all week for holidays. So, Simon, speaking of the holiday, what did you do?
Ate loads of food, and was merry.
Does Simon sound faint to anyone else?
Hello, testing.
Testing 1 2.
I can hear you. You can hear me.
I don't know what the lag. I don't know how much lag we have, so we're watching the chat.
Anyway,
in the meantime,
right.
Steph, James, Roa.
Hey. Yeah,
Who
welcome
else
everyone.
The crew is here. There you go. Audio sounds good.
Right.
Yeah,
let's crack on.
Closer. Mine or his? I think we both got. No, I got a blue.
I put my Bluetooth earbuds in, so maybe that messed something up. I know. I'll have to take a look in a minute.
Anyway, this is what happens when we try to stream during the holidays. 28 days to Flutter forward.
I'm going to check my mic volume quickly. No, that's not. I should be fine. Right. If I'm not, tell me. All right, we're moving on. So let's welcome to the stream, everyone.
Hello, Danielle.
So we're going to quickly do the do's and don'ts. So be nice, respectful, constructive whilst interacting in the YouTube chat. Don't post anything adult content, rude, offensive. Don't promote or advertise anything. Don't spam. Same thing again and again. We'll see you'll get moved to the bottom of the list on questions. And no harassment of any time is tolerated, and you'll be blocked from here and other places too. So you probably don't want to do that. And then especially do have a good time. All right. So my name's Simon Lightfoot, community leader and CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
I am Scott Stahl, community leader, also organizer, GDG Cleveland, rescue older pit bulls. And word is I type some code somewhere. I share a desk with Dobby under the stairs at Dev Angels London.
And let's get Randall here. Randall, welcome to the stream.
Hey, yay, welcome back. Or no, welcoming me back. I guess that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, hi, it's good to be back on this stream again and have survived the Christmas holiday and Festivus. Festivus was really a hard-hitting thing this year. So anyway, I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert. I answer questions all the time on all the various social medias and mediums. I don't know, some word like that. And I'm also the question magician here. If you have a question, you're in the live chat, put a Q colon in front of it. I will pick it out. I will presume that anything that doesn't have a Q colon is for you to talk amongst yourselves. So that's really important that you put the Q in there so you know that you need to come into our queue.
And then today we'd like to welcome Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stream.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be back. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Danielle Cox. I lead a team of 4 of us, I guess, that are working on Flutter at a company called Ardly, and we're a fintech startup, and so that's always a lot of fun. So I make sure I'm repping them, today. And so we're based here in the U.S. I'm in Florida, and been doing Flutter for coming up on I guess 4 years now, which is kind of cool. So I'm one of the old guard, but not as old as the other people on this call.
Old enough.
So anyway, that's me. I'm mainly working on Flutter Web, actually.
So, looking into the good old tradition of seeing what our guests have been up to recently, did you just get off a ship or are you getting ready to go on a ship?
Just got off a ship. Yeah, I was on a cruise. So which means we need to update my picture for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was also
new profile picture.
I've been using the cruise ship photographers for my headshots for years now. So they do a good job, and I end up with reasonable pictures, and I'm buying the pictures anyway. So
And you can walk to their office to pick up the picture. Sorry, I was just gonna say you can walk to their office to pick up the picture. It's not like it's cross town.
Exactly. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they printed it, but I also downloaded them. So I had several I liked this time, so that was kind of cool.
Awesome.
One of them is now my profile pic almost everywhere. Currently not on YouTube right now, and so I need to work on that. And so that's what I've been up to. Just a beautiful cruise. Went down to my favorite island of Bonaire, and took pictures of flamingos and little parrots, and so it was really nice.
Very nice.
One of the ABC
kind of bird
islands.
watching.
Yes. Aruba, Bonaire, and
Curacao.
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 Yeah.
I was on Curacao too, and I really enjoyed it this
Cool.
time. I didn't make Aruba this time, so I didn't get the whole ABCs, but
Yeah. Been there a few times on cruises because I've been almost everywhere in the world on cruises. So yeah.
Well, next time you're in Miami, look me up.
Yeah.
So,
I think someone's Alexa just went off.
Yeah, mine did.
did anybody else in chat
Is he still-
brave the bomb cyclone to travel? I'm not sure how many of you are in the U.S., but we took a look at the weather and we left a day early to
Yeah.
make sure we
can
ran
imagine.
ahead of that thing. But it was still pretty ugly, I'll tell you. Yep, we spent 8 hours in a car with a pit bull, trying to race ahead of a 70-mile-per-hour wind blizzard that apparently has killed 25 people in one of the cities in the U.S. that gets the most snow out of any. If Buffalo can't handle a snow event, something's wrong. So, anyway.
Yep. Anyway, let's get on with the show.
Yes. All right. So let's see what questions do we have in the queue already.
Just a couple.
What kind of really cool things
look.
are you going to get with your Christmas money?
It's
What kind of cool tech?
All right. And let's grab the first. Let's grab the first.
Speaking of money.
Yep.
It's a bit
Should
hard
we-
to find the
good segue.
Patreon link. Is it part of a plan to make the page more discoverable once hitting a certain milestone? Okay. First, you're assuming we have a plan. Unfortunately, that's more true than you know. We are putting together more of a plan, trying to build some more structure. And we used to have a lot of structure when we didn't have very many contracts and didn't have 40 hours a week worth of work. We definitely have that now. So we have not kept up with keeping the community as up to date and organized as we would like. But actually, as Simon and I have just been talking about, doing some more promotion, promoting the feed or promoting the show in general. Those of you who have been around for a while know we've kind of been hovering at 1,000 to 2,000 views, I believe, and anywhere between 30 and 50 or so live viewers. And we have done very little to actually push the show. We've just been enjoying it, but really it's probably time.
There's also been interest in other like forms of content that we've been doing, so like live coding and things that we're kind of looking at. So we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
Danielle, question for you. Do you also know any go?
Unfortunately, it's a real simple answer. No.
No go.
Go.
It's a no
That's a
go.
better answer. That's why we have
Randall,
that
next
Randall
time
around.
the key of B flat.
Yeah.
B flat.
I do like a bit of Golang. It's been a while since I've used it though. I used to use it quite a lot for like tooling, so doing local scripts, things like that. That I could put the standard library that comes with Golang is really good. The only problem with it is that Dart came along, and for me, I was like, oh, I just do it all in Dart now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to be
Awesome
honest, it's
stuff.
like I just go ahead and do all that kind of stuff in Dart now rather than worrying.
That is
with
kind of a
Golang.
trap with Dart that I've noticed. It may not be the most highly performant language in any situation, but the fact is it can pretty much be used in almost any situation. So I look back and I haven't bothered to really try to branch out in a few years because I haven't had to. Anything I've been wanting to do, I've been able to do in Dart.
I would have kind of a follow-up question for James if you'd like to do it. So, I'm curious why you're asking the question. What should I be knowing?
Yeah.
Really? No, that's pretty cool. Let's ask questions back.
Yeah.
Let's carry on.
Yep.
Sorry. Right. Why not we just respond directly instead of making models and then using so many work just to get an API? Huh?
I get what he's.
Why do we use a HTTP response?
Yeah. So we make an API call. Typically, we would create a model that we could use that to generate the JSON deserializing and take that and do that. And so he's just wondering, is that worth the work? And I think and my answer is I think it depends. In most cases, I think it is worth the work. But if it's a simple, just something comes back yes or no, maybe it's not. But
I'm going to say it's always worthwhile, and I'll tell you why I say it's always worthwhile. So what all programming is. So whenever you're, let me just explain something here, just to be clear. You could, as I've said this before, you can write an entire app in one file, right? You could do it, but it wouldn't be good, right? And the same goes for a lot of the time when you're organizing your structures in your application, you're still doing the same amount of work. You're just separating it off and organizing it in such a way that it makes it better for you to work with as a programmer. So when it comes to things like this, what you're actually doing is instead of going into the response directly and going, okay, give me this field. So, it passes the JSON for you, it's a map, and you just go read the fields directly from the map. Now, what you've done is you've now made a dependency on the response of your server across your application, because that's where you're extracting the fields from. Now, the idea of bringing it into a model is to give you an abstraction. This allows you to pass the server response in the back end. And if your server response changes, but you need to keep the model the same, you can make that choice and have it in one place in your application instead of having to alter your entire application, right? And this is what it's all about. It's all about organization. So the idea of having models is to say, this is a data class. It represents some data. How it represents data and how you get to that model is up to you. And so that's the bit that goes from the API to the model, and that's you deserializing it. But how you deserialize that, you might go and check the version in a field and go, okay, is it a version 1 structure? Then I'm going to interpret it this way. If it's a version 2 structure, I'm going to do it this way. You can make all these choices, and you can do this there instead of now across the application. Now you have to do a bunch of if statements. Oh, if this field doesn't exist, then use this other field. If that field's an integer, then pass it as a date timestamp from epoch. I mean, it'd just be a nightmare to manage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the abstractions are important to understand and how to create them and how to get examples so that to figure out what you're abstracting. Who was it that said there's no problem in computer science that can't be solved without adding a layer of indirection? There we go. It's one of those.
I can't remember.
Like it's something close to that. Yeah. But part of what it is it allows you to have one additional layer. It's why we do layers in full app development, that we don't have the view talking directly to the API. I mean, that would be silly. There are layers in between for very good reasons, for basically being an insulating point between changes on one side and changes on the other.
And I'd like to kind of talk about a meeting I'm having later today that we had, a little bit while I was gone and stuff. But right now we're developing a new product, Ardley, and part of that is, of course, I've got a back end team and I run the front end team. And so with the, we have to talk to each other on an API. And so the first step, we're trying to accomplish on that is to agree on a contract, is what we would call it, where if I make this call, here's how the answer is going to look. And once we've done that and I create a model for it, I can, for example, create fake data that I could just use to begin with. So I can develop without waiting for them to actually do all their code. Whereas, if I were just, if it weren't defined well, A, it could change real easy, and B, it's a lot of places that I'd have to change when it does change, and it's a lot more work. Whereas if I do this, and if I wanted to fake the data, it's a lot more places to do that. So now I can actually for the first couple of weeks before I've actually got my API calls ready to actually be called, I can still be developing my UI and working on making the call, stuff like that, and come back and see what's happening. And so that's another thing that's also important to do with that kind of an abstraction layer, is because right now, once I've done that, I don't really care if I'm talking to a backend, or I can be reading it from a file. I can be driving a test from a file, for example. I can do any number of ways of doing that with just simple JSON or whatever, because I've got the ability to abstract that layer out.
Yep.
So,
spot on. All right. Next question.
I'm really struggling to install and configure CocoaPods in Mac for building Flutter for iOS. Documentation of CocoaPods isn't helping much. I need help and suggestions. The main thing for this, really, we can't walk you through an install. However, if you go to flutter.dev community, you will find the link for the Flutter community Slack. There is an entire channel devoted to helping people with installs. And, there's not that many people there who can help you. I think it's only got 20,000 members now. So I think somebody there might be able to help you with this problem. And as I said, there's an entire channel devoted just to helping people with installs. And as James said, 2 words, homebrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got, is it Brew that you install CocoaPods with? It's been so long since I've actually had to do it.
You can install that, with Brew.
Homebrew install CocoaPods. Yeah, you probably want to install Homebrew. Homebrew is the basically the Mac developer's best friend. Whenever you need some sort of tool or something, there's a Brew package for it, and you'll build it and get it on your system.
Right.
So you can treat your system almost like a Linux system. I think there is. The problem generally CocoaPods is just atrocious, to be honest. The amount of problems I always get with CocoaPods. In fact, in the early days of Flutter, it was even worse, but it's got better. But I think,
and
we're
not trying to duck out of your. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it'd be nice to for the Flutter team to look at. So there's an open ticket for them looking at other package managers. So a lot of iOS development has moved over to Swift Package Manager, I think it is, and there's a few other alternative package managers. But obviously the build system that is built for Flutter and the way that the pod specs work and the way the plugin system works is all around CocoaPods. So
when I build a new client code base, it's always a toss up whether Gradle is going to give me more problems or Pods are. It seems to be about equal these days.
To this point, I do want to make this to what Steph just said here, which is she had to uninstall and then reinstall on her Mac. This is because the installation that was probably there was for x86 or for M1 or for ARM and vice versa. What you need to do is install. I've actually had to install Brew twice, right? You install Brew for ARM, and that should install maybe your native install, and then you do another separate installation and a separate directory for x86. Now you can flip those two things around, but the idea is then you can have an alias command for running the x86 Brew versus the real Brew, and when it does installations, they'll be put in a separate directory, and this allows you to switch between those two environments. And to be honest, it's just where some tools are not available and cannot work with dependencies from one to the other. And you cannot mix ARM and x86 code together, so it gets complicated. But for the most part, when it comes to mobile development and iOS, you shouldn't have a problem with install Brew and CocoaPods. Should be fine.
And we're not trying to avoid your question. The thing is if you go to the Flutter community Slack and ask in the installation channel, you're going to have a lot more people who can answer it. You can post code, they can post code, they can post links. It's just a lot better place to get an answer a lot faster than we can help you out with there.
Yeah.
And there's also on the Flutter Discord, there is a install general channel, but there's also an iOS and macOS specific channels. So if it's like I'm trying to build this iOS app and Pod is giving me problems, that would be a great place to go.
The Flutter Dev Discord that's linked to also at Flutter. Flutter.dev community. Okay.
Exactly. I'm talking exactly about that one, sir.
Yep. So.
Yep.
Once again,
And I'll even
can
say
find
whenever I have to do it, it doesn't go easy.
Mhm.
But it gets there.
Yep.
Alrighty. Onward through the
I
fog.
I just want to quickly mention, I just saw a little new video drop on the Flutter official Flutter YouTube channel. Deep linking in Flutter. So they've finally done like a little guide, I guess. I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. That looks good.
Huh.
Nice.
Maybe that answers one of the questions coming up.
Maybe. All right.
Alrighty.
Next question.
Opinion about ChatGPT. We are getting, you know what? This question is replacing state management.
I know.
Every
know.
week.
Yes.
I just wish that it would replace SEO.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
It sort of has.
Yeah.
It sort of has.
ChatGPT, this past weekend, I decided to really put it to the test. Okay. I asked ChatGPT, is Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol social commentary? And if so, about what?
Oh, wow.
And this thing gave me an answer better than my philosophy TA at University of Arizona could have.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. Truly was. It gave a great answer to that.
Yep. It's usefully mimicking intelligence, but it is a mimic, and it's doing it usefully.
So, I mean, we've said this before. In fact, we used ChatGPT on this very show a couple of weeks back. So go check that out.
Yep.
I think, and we did talk about it a lot then. So I don't really want to rehash and spend a lot of time on it now. I think there might be the thing is the opinion about it generating code. Well, it will generate code based on the examples it's seen online and so on and so forth. Those can be wrong, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And the problem is the way it words its answers are it's right with conviction. Right, it's right with you must do it this way. Boom, here's an example. The problem here is that may not be the best way. That may not be correct. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to take whatever it returns you back, with a pinch of salt. It's not intelligence in that sense, right? So
remember, the same thing applies. Same thing applies to Copilot. Copilot with all this too. Copilot is the same sort of similar, as I like to keep saying, it's either spookily accurate or spectacularly wrong. And sometimes you can't tell until you start playing with it and you go, oh yeah, that's not working. So yeah.
And a lot of the code it writes is not null safe. So by the time you rewrite it.
I mean, they're an out year, if I remember rightly, that it was working on data sets from over a year ago. So from the Flutter sphere, that a lot's changed in the last year. So yeah. Anyway, moving on.
All right.
Oh, Steph.
Might be to add the Patreon,
please.
Sure.
That was easy. Move on.
Yeah.
Next question.
Well, actually, can we go back to that question just for a second?
I've lost it.
Maybe.
Yeah,
that's all right. It's not a problem. Everybody saw Steph was referencing the Flutteristas. There we go. That's different.
No.
That's all right. It doesn't matter. We're okay. We're fine. We don't need to. It's okay. I just wanted to bring up the fact that the Flutteristas, it's probably worth mentioning that I'm one of the organizers of the Flutteristas, as is Steph. So thank you for jumping in here, Steph. And anyway, we're an organization for female and non-binary Flutter enthusiasts. And, so if you're interested in that, you can go to flutteristas.org. There's an application there. You can hit me up on Twitter, and I can help guide with parts of that. And it's a great group of people that we get together. We try to have monthly meetings. We just had one with a similar group for Firebase. And so we're doing that. We held a conference a year and a half ago. I plan on holding one this next year. And I would even love to have an in-person part of that if we can. And so that's something.
As I say, if anyone that wants to watch those videos, they're right here on this very channel. If you go to a playlist, you'll find a playlist for the Flutteristas conference.
Yeah, we did stuff a little bit different than other ones have done, because since it was online, we wanted to make it as inclusive as possible. So instead of spreading the content out multiple days, we actually held it for one really long day, and we actually had like four like multiple hour chunks of time, so that someone could watch live from anywhere in the world. That's what we're trying to do with that. And so
it makes it look like a 4-day conference, and there
Right.
is enough material to be a 4-day conference.
So anyway, but I just since Steph was bringing up Flutteristas, I just figured it's probably worth mentioning for a second. So sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely.
Simon, carry on.
And also a very creative and guaranteed way to get banned from Flutter Community Slack and Discord and a number of other things is for a straight guy to try to join the Flutteristas and then start hitting on women to try to date them. So if you want to make sure that you can never get into anywhere else and that your passwords suddenly don't work anymore. So anyway.
So what's the next question here? Okay. How to implement dynamic links in Flutter Web?
Watch the video.
Yeah, as I say, it says in Flutter Web for Android and iOS.
Mm-hmm.
As
What?
such that
If the
if an app is not that if the app is not installed, then the app should ask the user want to stay in browser or install app from Play Store.
It's for mobile web. I see it all
No.
the time.
Wait. No. Dynamic links. How to implement dynamic links in Flutter Web,
Right,
for Android and iOS.
There are plenty of websites out there that if we go to the website on my phone, for example, it gives me the option to either go to the application or to keep using the web version of it.
Sure, but that's nothing to do with. But that's nothing to do. Sorry, I'm trying to understand here what so
also,
he means that
actually, to back up even a little further from what Simon's thinking, this is not even a Flutter thing. Because remember, Flutter's supposed to be the web app, not the page.
It's a Flutter thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Huh?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sort of to understand the question here because it's not very clear because it's a very long question that doesn't really clearly. I think the question here is using dynamic links. You have a HTTP link, and when someone taps on it, it can open up a website, right? If they don't have the Android iOS app installed, and then on the website it should ask them, do you want to stand the browser or install the app?
Mm-hmm.
And it says how to implement that. We'll just implement that on the website. Just have a little bar that says, do you want to install the app? And it just directs them to the Play Store or to the Apple App Store, depending on their browser. It's called the agent, the user agent. So if you look at in fact, it's.
So what you're saying is
there's a
instead
community
of on the
package to help
link
you determine
side,
that too, right?
It's probably a package, actually, yeah. But I was going to say that there is actually let's see if I can share this.
okay. Well, if I'm understanding you right, instead of using the link side, you're talking about on the landing page.
So yeah.
So do you want to stay here or install the app?
Yeah, but I mean, like you need to detect what one you're on, right? So you got the window class is it navigator user agent? I think it is, or something like that. Let's have a look. Navigator. I think it's user agent here. It's been a long time. User agent, yeah, user agent. So basically, there's a global property which you can access called window. So in your web application, you import .html, which is fine for Flutter Web. And you can also use universal_HTML package to make it compile on both if you want to. And then you do window.navigator.useragent. And if this contains the word Android, then you're on an Android phone. And you can then go to the Play Store, put the Play Store logo and do all that. And when they click on the link, you just set window.location.href to the Google Play Store or window.open with the URL, and it will open in a new tab, the Play Store, and that's it. They're being directed, and that's as simple as it gets. This is how you would just do it anyway, like if you were to build it yourself anyway. Hope that helped.
All right. Any thoughts on gRPC with Dart for server client communication? Oh boy.
Yay. So in fact, I mean, I did that a long time ago in Flutter, in fact, and used Dart and the server side for that.
I was saying, oh boy, because this is something Simon's been excited about on and off for a while.
Yeah, it kind of. So I'm just trying to find a link for this. It does kind of it's a really nice idea and it's really great, but the web implementation of gRPC was really quite bad. The dark web one. I don't know how it sits right now. It was a while ago when I looked at it. So hopefully they've improved that. But you basically end up needing to deliver to web, and to support the web browsers, you really need a gateway that delivers the gRPC packets of data, the transactions of data back and forth over WebSockets. In which case, why am I using gRPC at some point? Well, I could just use WebSockets for everything. So, maybe there is a pro and con, but you could just send protocol buffers over a WebSocket. Maybe you use it for code generation. There's plenty of reasons. However, if people are interested in what gRPC is, I think it originally stood for Google Remote Procedure Call, but now it stands for General Remote Procedure Call, I believe. But it's just a way of communicating between services and the back end. And I bring this up here. So our friends over at Sumneo Software, that's Franco, that was on in the last Humpday, he is here, Jim Franco, did this great article talking you through how you can actually build software using these mechanisms, showing you how you install the Proto-C plugin on Dart, how you can create protocols and services using gRPC, and how it generates the code for you, and then how you implement that Dart code in your project. So it's a long article. It's got lots and lots of great content in there. Highly recommend it. It's a good starting point for people that want to explore gRPC, protocol buffers, and all that. And I'll pop it in the chat for everyone. Yeah. Anyone else's thoughts on this? Sorry. No. All right. Moving on.
Yep.
Michael.
Do you see a future where Flutter dev won't require a fairly high-end dev machine? Are others successful developing on cheaper machines? What about a tablet? My development machine is not very high-end.
Mine is. So let me caveat that with I've got a very good version of last year's M1 Mac, and so I'm definitely there. And to build for the Apple Play Store, you're going to have a Mac. It doesn't have to be a good Mac, but you've got to have a Mac. I was having this discussion at the Dev Fest I was at recently with a GDG manager who had been a manager over in Africa. And so he was excited about Flutter because with Flutter, they didn't have to go buy Macs and stuff. And I'm like, well, they still have to have it. They can build everything. They can test it all on a much cheaper machine. But to build it for the App Store, there's still got to be some way to build it on a machine that is a Mac or that's a Mac. And so I would say that you don't need a high-end dev machine at all, but you do need to have maybe access to a way of doing it, which I know there's places where you can timeshare it, right?
There's a bunch of there's a bunch of websites that you rent. Sorry, I think there's a lag here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
There is actually there's several websites that have places where you can rent servers and Mac boxes. And in fact, I'm going to recommend one of our friends, Code Magic, who actually you can just run your build on their build servers that are Mac, so you don't have to own a Mac yourself. However, again, you then still have to test it. You still need an iPhone then, or you still need a device. It also slows down your development process if you do find bugs and issues. So, be aware that that's the thing. Anyway, but to talk generally on this question, Flutter dev does not require a fairly high-end machine. It's not Flutter. Flutter and Dart is not the thing that requires a high-end dev machine. What requires a high-end dev machine is on top of Flutter, you're now doing the Android ecosystem, or you're doing the iOS ecosystem on top of that, right? So it's not just it's now the two together, right? So you can go and build for a desktop application, and it'll be really, really quick and simple to develop and won't require a lot of resources. And I think conversely, you start saying, oh, I want to do web. Well, now the web browser takes up a lot of resources because you're doing the debugging, you're doing development. But in general, I think most development requires a higher end machine, should we say. Because if you want a good development experience, you want a fast development experience, then you're going to need a fast machine. It doesn't matter what development it is, Flutter, Google, Android, Mac, whatever, right? If you don't, this is why a lot of the developer machines are gaming machines. A lot of people buy those high-end rigs because they want the memory, they want the facilities to just do the work and not have to wait for the machine, right? So, although, you know, as I said, like, you know, just like JavaScript or just like any of these things, you can just go programming it on a browser. There's a lovely zap.run, zapp.run, made by our friends over at Invitae, which is a IDE in your browser, and you can go and run Dart Flutter code in your browser, and does not require a high-end dev machine.
Yep. Now, to caveat the caveat, Simon and I prefer Windows. However, to do Flutter development professionally, you've got to have some kind of Mac. And we both are running Mac Minis. To give you an idea, I have a 2018 Mac Mini with an i5 with shared video memory, and there's not even much memory on this thing in the first place. And it does just fine. I paid $350 for it, maybe $400 off of eBay. And I think you're running a 2014, aren't you, Simon?
Me?
Your Mac Mini?
I've got an M1. I've got an M1.
Oh, you got another one, an M1? Well, and also, though, I had an M1. I had two M1s, actually, from other contract jobs. And I think they were slower than my Mac Mini. Honestly, M1s run some software very fast. They're very quiet. They're very cool. But
I disagree completely.
The ones I had
M1
were not the strongest.
M1's always been faster than all the others.
Yeah, absolutely. I love mine. And the other thing I will say, though, is that going along with what we're saying, you know, when you start dealing with the tooling and stuff, I'm running IntelliJ for my IDE, which I know a lot of people are not doing that, but I'm using IntelliJ for my IDE. And there are times where it's almost psychic when I start typing that it figures out what I want to do. And that takes resources too. So the slower the machine you are that's on, less resources it has, the less that those kinds of things that are just boosters for your productivity are there. So
yeah, I'll give you give a good example of this that I found, that I've always found as a difference between developing Flutter on VS Code versus IntelliJ. This came up the other day. Just reminded me of it. For example, refactoring. In IntelliJ, it indexes all your code. It has all that in there. I choose to refactor a symbol, and it does it like for most of the time, like completely immediately, no problems. If someone's Alexa's going off there,
not mine this time.
I think they might have one. Well, if none of us own an Alexa, then that doesn't make sense.
I was on mute, so
Randall's figuring it out. Randall's figured it out. Anyway,
gotcha.
Anyway. So as I said, you can refactor instantly in IntelliJ, where in VS Code you try and do a refactor, and then when you do the refactor, then it goes and indexes everything and actually does that. So it doesn't take up as much memory in the background, but then it takes you a lot longer to do the refactoring process. And I feel like that there's differences between, you know, how much you have. But, you know, if you're working with a large code base, it's going to eat up a lot of memory. It's that simple, right? Like, I think a lot of people don't realize that an IDE has to know what color, where each character starts in your file and what color it should be. Now, just imagine if you were to program that yourself, you now need to store a color. You now need to store a starting index, an ending index, maybe the length, maybe some other attributing values against every word and symbol in your entire file, and it has to do that for all the files in your project.
And if you're running a mono repo,
yeah,
okay, and I have seen mono repos with 20 submodules and more. I mean, they get big, but yeah, there's no doubt. If you're running a smaller machine, I would definitely go VS Code. IntelliJ does so much more for you, but yeah, you don't get it for free. That takes power.
I was gonna say Zap. I'd say Zap is should be your first thing. Like, you could go run that on a tablet right now in a browser, and it will just work. No questions asked. No need to worry about things. In fact, Zap is based off the VS Code browser rendering engine thing. So it's all integrated. It all just works. Anyway, moving on. Right, let's get some other questions in here.
Yeah. Is any way to open a Flutter zip file offline? I've never heard of a Flutter zip file.
Does he mean just a zip file?
Yeah, open
A
a
zip
zip
file
file
made
from a Flutter app when you're offline.
Or
So you just hold on. You just use the archive package on pub.dev, which supports zip files, and you just open up a zip file in your dark code and do whatever you want with it. I assume that's what you mean. There's a package for that. Yes. So
there's a widget for that. There's a package for that. And pretty soon
the
there will be an
only
app
thing I
for
can think
that.
of is if they're talking about like some sort of a bundle, like an APK or something, which is sort of zip. But that's
which is a zip.
Yeah.
And you can still open that off offline, and
So I'm not sure, but I think the archive is probably the answer to the question.
The package called Archive, which has been around a long time, and this supports zip-tar, all those lovely common things. So it has decoders for all these things and decompression and encoders for these. It's been around a long time, and it's pretty straightforward and simple. Open up your input file, decode it, read off the files, and output them or do whatever you want with them. And there's some nice helper method like extract a disk, which lets you extract a zip file to a directory. So, have fun.
Okay, two things real quick. I want to put it out there. We have company coming for the holidays, so I have 15 minutes before I need to go start helping with housework.
We're gonna. I was going to say, which ask for last. Go on.
Okay. Just for fun, if you use the G thing and you ask it for a reminder about a dev fest, don't be surprised if it reminds you about a death fest.
Anyway, so quickly, I was going to say, let's call last questions here because I want to do some live coding. I've got some ideas that we could play around with, and people seem to like the live coding stuff. So we'll have a play around with that at the end of the stream. So get your last questions in now because we'll start wrapping it up, and then we can get to some live coding.
There we go. All righty. What are you using for animations in Flutter? Dart code.
I usually like my implicit animations. I find in most cases I can do stuff I need to with that. I've done some custom. I've done some custom animations, but I've still been able to use the implicit ones, from Flutter to make it happen. By combining them into the widget I want. And I usually find that works just fine for me.
Go ahead.
As I said in the chat, I've been playing lately with Flutter_animate. That's a package in the pub. I should probably have gotten a link to it, but I'm sure people can figure that out.
I literally was looking up just before this. So
this is the one that Skinner did for Wondrous and showing off a lot of really cool things. So this is the package he used.
Animation.
Yeah, this is a great package. It's simple, and yet it's very powerful. It's very deep. It's a lot deeper than it appears to be. But it starts out really simple and really easy to do some basic stuff.
Nice.
It's got some really cool models. So there's this one here. This is animate, and this does this kind of model of wrapping as you go, like a builder pattern here, which is kind of interesting on widgets. And then there's also animations by Flutter and Google Team, which offer another set of type of animations that are very common in material. So these kind of things.
But also, I do want to bring up the vast majority of times you're going to be able to get by with the intrinsic animations, or the next one we've used mainly as Custom Painter, and rarely. In fact, I can't even think of in a production app when I've had to reach for physics. And then if you're going to do anything that's not simple, of course, you want to reach for those beauties. But also, I think Mariano and a few others would point to online tools that we may be leaving out. There's this guy, Matt Sullivan. That's it. Where did he end up?
Rive, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still Rive actually.
And Rive is actually more games, though, isn't it?
So Rive. I mean, Rive is an animations is a little animation suite, right? And it lets you do self-contained like almost frame by frame animations, that kind of thing. So if there's a need to have like an something animated within the UI, maybe a logo, does some animation on Splash, they're the kind of things that Rive would be good for. But when you're talking about sort of animating widgets and doing stuff intrinsically within your application, then there's not the tool for the job.
Yeah, and there are a number of different things that will produce Lottie files.
Oh yeah, so that's also there's also a Lottie Flutter as well for that. I was gonna say so there's a bunch of widgets that end in the word transition, and these let you pass in any sort of animation parameter, and then you can combine these in multiple ways. You've also got like the opacity, and there's a bunch of widgets around these. These are the implicitly animated ones. I was trying to find where they inherit from. Somewhere there's inheritance chain. Yeah, I'm sure. But the one time I'm looking for it, animated opacity. Hang on. Yeah, implicitly animated widget. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So
Those are the ones I was talking about. Were these implicitly animated ones? I should have been clear.
Yep. But here you go. These are the ones. These are the ones that a lot of the time will just work and do what you want, and you just if you want to. The problem is each one of these runs its own vsync callback, runs its own timer callback. So if you want to kind of align animations together, it sometimes can be difficult because you need to pass an animation object to these. So if you notice here, you were passed in this case as an animated opacity. We passed the opacity value and the curve and the duration. And what will happen is if you change this opacity value, it will use this curve and duration to animate it for you. You don't have to think about how it animates it at all. The problem is if you want to now do an opacity and a slide and a rotation together, or some other combination of multiple widgets, you can't negotiate them doing it all at the same time in synchronization. So let's say you do want to do it so as the person scrolls, things happen in synchronization with the scroll. You can't do that with these widgets. That's where the transition widgets come in play. Right. So the transition widgets take an animation object, as you can see here, an animation object, and that controls the actual animation taking place. And as shown, it's in the example here, you can create an animation controller and with a duration. And then you create your animation, curved animation in this case, or you can create tweens and other things. But that's the standard animation framework inside Flutter. There's plenty of talks and videos and content and widget of the weeks and all the rest of it about all of these things. I'm just trying to explain that, yeah, if there's a lot of things you can do just with a built-in animation system. So I just practice with that, is what I suggest.
Yeah, now I'm a little bit. You were saying you can't really use multiple intrinsic animations simultaneously.
No, you can use them simultaneously, but you cannot synchronize them simultaneously. So, for example, let's say I scroll down on a page and I want it to fade out in time with the scroll. So what I can do is when they first start scrolling, I say, set the opacity to 50% for 1 second duration. Now I scroll down, they scroll back up again. Well, what do? Do I change that based on how much they've scrolled? And that goes out of sync? Like, it's just not, they're not synchronized, right? So the animation does not take place as they scroll, right? Like it's got its own timer, it's got its own duration, it's got its own control and vsync, right? So what you ideally want to do is have your scroll controller update your animation controller, and then you can have a bunch of widgets like formed off the animation controller animations.
Right. You need one controller, because I did a workshop one time where I used one controller to control a whole bunch of animations. Some of them were simultaneous and some of them were triggered. Basically, it was one controller for a duration of like 10 seconds, and each animation started and stopped at certain breakpoints, like stops. Now, when you do that, though, wouldn't it be possible to use the scroll position as the controller instead of an animation controller? No?
Flutter Animate has that as an exact example. So Flutter Animate is probably your glue that you want between anything you want to animate and anything you want to control with it.
You can control an animation controller and a scroll controller together. You can tie them together to do what you want.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the stream's having a little bit of problems on YouTube, so hopefully some people. It looks like we're getting a bit of lagging problem on YouTube. There's nothing we can do about that. So hopefully stick with us. Otherwise, Hopefully it'll clean itself up because there's nothing we can do here. We're not
And
seeing
yeah,
anything on our
somehow
side.
we're still getting more questions in the queue.
Well, it might be working for some people.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's carry on here.
Moving
So next question. Moving on.
Translator app can be opened from another app by selecting the text in that app and giving translate option in the menu. Okay. And translator opens on top of that app. How to do that with Flutter?
What? Google Translator app can be opened from another app by selecting. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can do that in Flutter, but that's nothing to do with Flutter. So
Yeah, that's
there you go.
DOS opening activity.
It's on the keyboard, right?
Yeah. So basically, what happens is there's accessibility services inside of Android. I believe they're accessibility services that let you pick up the selected text. There's also implemented in Android 12, I believe, where you can select the text on the screen and then it'll give you options. Your application can register with the operating system to receive or to be provided on that list of options to select and what to do. That is all to do with Android. Go look that one up specifically, right? That's nothing to do with Flutter, right? Then what happens when you tap on the things, it will launch an intent, which launches your application. And then your application can actually register. I'll show you here, actually. So a lot of people don't realize you can do this. So I'll just share a little bit here. So if you go to api.flutter.dev/java.doc, this is linked from the main documentation. This will take you into the what's called the Java documentation. This is standard sort of generated docs for Java code. This is what the host on Android is built with, like out of these classes, as it were. And you'll find in the activity, where is it? Not activity. I'll find it in a second. Should probably just click on something in a second. Flutter activity. Here we go. It overrides a bunch of things, and you can override the behavior application. And one of these is get render mode. I think it is. Bear with me a second. I think it should pop up. Hang on. Render mode. Yeah, get render mode. And the render mode that's returned lets you choose if you want it as an out to an image, surface, or surface texture. If you choose texture, in fact, you can use it's someone's.
Sorry, that was me. That was mine this time. Sorry.
Just unplug it. That'll shut them up. Right. Anyway,
it's the one plugged into the wall. You need to pull on that.
Anyway, so here you'll see that in enum transparency mode, you can actually say render Flutter's UI with transparency. So all you need to do is override that get transparency mode, and return with the transparent enum here. I believe you might have to return back the was it texture mode here with does not impact space, or maybe I know try it out. But basically, these two getters in tandem, if you override them on your activity, essentially your Flutter will be rendered on top of whatever's there behind your app when it loads up. So this then allows you to like have a window that floats around on the screen, and you can move it around, and you can do that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, it's a bit more complicated than that, and you need to play around with the native code a bit more probably. But in general, that's the bit that enables the Flutter to become transparent on top of something inside the operating system on Android.
Very cool. All right. Now, one more here before I turn into Cinderella. Well, that'll be something to see. Any suggestions to cope with older versions of Flutter packages while working in projects that have been in development for a long time? Flutter.dev contains details of newer releases only. This is kind of similar to something I ran into on a contract job, I believe. And the best advice is update, update, update. Don't be working with older versions, because especially
you may not be able to. The package you want to use may not be being updated.
They have to fork it then.
Okay, and update it.
Yeah,
right?
Fork it and update it. Because what ends up happening is eventually, if you're working at a big shop like I was on this contract, they asked me to set up the CI/CD. So I set it up on an AWS S2. And the thing is that one of the devs had been an Android dev, and they were constantly afraid of, if I update, then I end up with dependencies of dependencies of dependencies having problems, and it becomes a tangled mess. That's fine for the Android world, but we really couldn't afford to do that with Flutter, and we're supposed to stay updated. And one of the reasons was, when I set up the CI/CD, we set it up to run the latest. So every time that S2 instance spun up, it went out to GitHub and pulled down the latest Flutter SDK. And wouldn't you know it, real quick, that person's code failed. It would not run at all. And they tried to blame the CI/CD. And I'm like, no, you haven't updated in 6 months. I'm sorry. The fact that you don't want to update is not a reason to say the CI/CD is broken. And sooner or later, this kind of thing will happen if you don't update. And as Danielle said, yes, you might not have other people updating the package, fork it, or take it over. You know, if the package is abandoned, reach out, take it over. And if you don't think you can, ask around on the Flutter community Slack.
Or frankly, find a new package if you have to.
Yeah.
What's that?
Or, it's frankly, find a new package. Or I'd say, don't use the package in the first place. What is it actually doing for you? Is it doing something small? Bring it into your own application, right? Do it in your own app. Also, you said here, pubdev does not contain details of only contains details of newer releases. That's never the case. Pub contains a history of all releases ever. So if you're not finding the old releases, that's something on your side, I'd say.
And if those are newer releases of the same package, then it is being maintained, and we're right back to update.
Yeah.
Because, and the thing is, please understand, whatever problems you're running into now might only be the beginning of your problems if you're not updating.
Yeah.
So that's another reason that we're saying that. I mean, whatever you're running into now, even if you fix this, doesn't mean the problems are over.
You said you're developing on like this older project. Then I'd say that I'd also suggest that you speak to the owners of the project. If it's not you that owns the project, about spending time doing this, because it's part of maintenance. You have to do this. I'll give an example right now. When Dart 3 comes out, it will not be only support null safe code. If you're using old packages like that aren't null safe, that's it. Your code's no longer going to be compilable.
It has to be sound null safety.
So, well, same thing. Right, anyway. So, right, moving on.
Okay. We have a house to get ready for a house of guests. So you all have a wonderful time, and I will see you next year.
See you next year, Scott.
See you later. Right.
Yeah, I believe that's a follow-up on the translate
3.
question.
So, sorry, say again, Daniel.
I believe that's a follow-up on the translate question.
Oh, right. Can you guide or advise on how to do it with Flutter? How to do it? You need to put context. Please repost your question, and we'll see if we can get to it. That's all I can say. I don't even remember. I can't get hunting.
If you look at my Twitter, I'm learning Turkish right now, so I'm using these kinds of things all the time. So
translate stuff. Food delivery.
Over here.
You missed us.
Yeah, really. Where's my food?
I don't know that one. Anyway, right.
Okay.
Yeah, please repost your question, and maybe give a bit more context, because can you advise how to do it? To do what?
Deep linking thing? Was that the deep linking? The selecting the app, or was that them?
Oh, it says I got it, no problem. So okay, I guess we've answered it. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Fine by me, right? Can we expect Flutter to become competitive for mobile games versus Unity? I mean, I don't know if expect is the right word here, right? So I'm going to say that at the moment it's nothing like Unity, right? So you can do 2D games, sure, but Unity is a 3D game engine, right? Flutter is a UI toolkit. There's an overlap there, but they're not the same thing at all. That's the reason why Flutter has game engines that are built on top of it, right? But also with Impeller coming along with it's for what we can see so far, and they haven't said they're going to have X support versus Y support, but it seems to have good 3D support there. If we're going to start seeing 3D in that respect, then yes, I think it could be competitive with Unity. But again, it's always going to be, I'd say it's always going to be a step behind in terms of, it's not designed to be a game engine. It's not designed for that. So I suspect what we're going to get from, if we are going to get anything at all from Impeller, will be the fundamentals, the structure, which is how a game engine works, by the way. Like all those game engines use shaders. All those game engines have all this kind of layers of foundational pieces, and that's what we're going to see. It's up to someone else, hopefully the Flame guys, but whoever else, to build on top of that and to build something on top of Impeller that actually achieves something similar to Unity. But that all requires funding. There's a whole business model there that that's up to someone else to do, not Flutter, right? That's what I'd say. Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to add to that? Sorry, I kind of.
The only thing I want to say is that of the games I play, a lot of them are built on Unity, but they sure didn't need to be. Like if you're playing a Sudoku game, for example, it does not need to be built on Unity. Right. Things like that. So definitely there's a little bit of the right tool for the right job. And if you had a game that's successful and you built it on Unity, you're paying a lot of money.
So, because you have to pay Unity's
royalty, licensing, whatever, And so the point being is that's so I would say that it's already Flutter's already competitive, depending on the type of game. If you're talking about a serious, 3D gamer, it's not yet, and hopefully, like Simon, just gave a good explanation of how we might expect more in the future on that. But I would say take a look at the game, and it may very well be that it's something that is, competitive. Now,
in fact, I think we might do some 3D programming live on the stream after we finish these questions.
Yeah,
see how that goes. Right, and next one. There we go. Question: like Sandbox and CodePen, do you any web page who play Flutter code? Yeah, Zap. It's the one we just put. Dartpad. Dartpad.dev, which is for Dart code specifically. I think it has like a Flutter UI one, but to be honest, I think that right now the latest technology is in Zap, and I've just put both links to these in the chat for you.
Cool.
Well, and on the on Flutter.dev, when you're looking at a widget, a lot of times there's a link to a little sandbox version you can play with right there.
Yeah. Right. So that's running from I think it's dartpad.dev/Flutter or something. There's like
it detects Flutter. It detects Flutter. If you have it include or import the Flutter dev, it automatically goes into Flutter mode.
There you go.
But and I find that very helpful at times. If I'm trying to understand some little subtlety of something, I go there and I can just change around the little piece of it, and figure out, well, why wasn't this growing? Why is my container in a stack not full size? Things like that. So.
All right. Here's one for you, Randall.
Flutter and Blender. Let's see. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not very good at Blender yet. Yeah.
Any chance Flutter with Blender? I mean, I don't know what you mean. Like, you could just go read that right now. There's in fact, I've shown, if you go look at my tweets, you'll find some 3D stuff. You can go build a model in 3D in Blender and then load that model in Flutter and render it in Flutter if you want to. Nothing stops you. It just requires you to do effort. Right, next one. Last one. And we get some live coding. Dart server in Windows not releasing port after stop though versus code but works on terminal. You're probably not stopping it. That's what I'd say.
Well, there's also the 30-second timeout that's always in there, built into the TCP protocol.
No. This is on, if you're spinning up a server in your local machine on Windows, it doesn't matter what programming language, Dart or whatever. As soon as the process closes, it releases that port back to the operating system immediately to be reused by another application. There's no 30-second time.
Yes, there is. TCP for years has always had. You had to you had to add a call to say no protection from that 30-second
Stop
window.
clocks, yeah.
Yeah, when you open it as
you
the
don't have to do
server.
it. It's by default set on Windows now. You don't have to do it.
Well, Windows is weird then, because that the reason for that is to keep stray packets from ending up on your port. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of POSIX, but no, it's totally not a thing anymore. On Windows,
I hope somebody we've got a recording on this, so I can grab Randall saying Windows is weird. So,
It's okay. I've said it many times in public before.
But what's happening here is you're not stopping your program properly.
Yeah,
that's what's happening here. So just because you hit maybe a stop button doesn't mean it shuts down the process. So a lot of people that don't realize what they're doing properly on the server side is they'll leave it with asynchronous tasks running. So when you shut it down, it's you're not closing the process. It's still got those asynchronous processes running. So your program doesn't actually terminate correctly. If you go look at your processes, I reckon you've probably got dart.exe multiple times inside your process list, where it's still running in the background or trying to do stuff in the background. What you need to do, and I highly recommend most people do this, especially with server-side code, is you can detect Control-C or the interrupts signal. Let me just bring this up on stream here. I'm sure I can quickly find it in the doc somewhere. So you'll find process signal. Yeah. So you do process signal dot watch. You get a stream back or a process signal. The process signal, by the way, is an instance of it. So there's actually, you want sig int or sig interrupt, I believe. So you do process signal dot sig int dot watch dot listen, and that will give you back a stream of when the event occurs. And when the event occurs, you'll get a method call, basically. And that allows you to detect when the person presses Control-C and essentially interrupts the process. There's a bunch of these. I was just trying to find it. There you go. Sig int sent by Control-C. Anyway, you'll get back the thing, and then you can unregister and you can shut down your server. You do server.close. You can shut down your database connection, shut down your whatever ongoing processes you have going on, basically. All right. Right. I think. What do we have here? I think that's it. What we're going to do, I'm going to share my screen here, and me and Randall were talking just before the stream about this idea about doing some snow and how there's these snow effects you get, and how depth works in them. Hang on, let me see if I can bring up what I was talking about, and then we can share it on the stream here.
I think, Simon, while you're doing that, I think I'm going to go ahead and drop off. And
okay, nice.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. Cool. Unless it changes, I think I'm scheduled in a couple weeks anyway to come back.
We'll see you then.
I look forward to it. Thanks, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thanks. Bye.
Yes. See you next year.
All right.
You can only say that for a few more days. Yes.
I know, right? It's always that thing, the very last point of the year, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let's see if we can get this going. So,
right.
Screen share.
We're still getting a lot of questions in the chat room. We're done taking questions. Simon's going to be live coding. I'm just going to be sitting over here watching Simon live code.
You can obviously, I mean, you can try and get some stuff answered, but it should probably be about what we're doing, and you're about to see it. So let's see. Is this legible for everyone?
Maybe one bigger.
Tough luck.
No. Oh yeah, it's better. That's good. You can get rid of us too. You don't need us there.
Oh no, it's not fun without some faces.
Okay.
All right. Is this good for everyone? All right. So you're gonna so yeah. So there's this snow effect I saw on a message I got through, and it's kind of like 3D snow effect, and I was like, it's actually it's completely 2D, by the way. So what's happening here is you randomly pick your starting locations, and then you randomly pick a size, and based on that size, you then randomly pick a vertical velocity. So basically, the smaller it is, the slower it is. So it looks from your point of view, looking at this two-dimensional animation, that the smaller they are, they're further away because they're moving down slower, right? So this is completely a perception thing, right? But what's it take to actually do this in 3 dimensions, and actually achieve the same effect with 3D math? I don't know. I just thought it might be fun. So we're going to give that a go. So I set up a little test project here, and I'll just take you through what we've done so far, what we're going to do. So we just have this is all the code here. This is Blizzard app, and I've got it compiled for Windows only right now. And then what we're going to need is vector math. So I've added vector math and tied up the manifest in. That's all we've got here. So just before the stream, I was playing around with some concepts, and we're gonna get them in there first of all, and then we can get back to the meat of what we're actually trying to achieve. So I think the first thing we need to do is try and simulate the 2 dimensions, and then we can then take that into 3 dimensions. So we're kind of practically in the right place. So how do we do a nicely animated stuff in Flutter and achieve this? So first of all, we can obviously we could have here's the thing, right? Like we could do each snow particle as a as a widget, and we could animate that widget. Question is, sorry to say, question coming in. What idea is this? This is IntelliJ, but using the new UI settings. So inside the latest version of IntelliJ, under appearance, you now have new UI beta, and if you enable that, you get this new UI. And I've made everything a lot bigger because stream. So basically, first of all, and so as I said, if we had a widget for every snow particle, you could do it, but we would do unnecessary building, unnecessary rendering, because we don't need that level of control over them, right? So we just want to repaint. So I think what we're going to do here is a custom render object. Now, we said about custom render objects before, them being quite complicated. And I was going to say that there are some simple ways to tackle these. So I'm going to show you a nice little simple one. So first of all, we want to create another widget, and we'll call this Snow Blizzard. And it's going to extends a single child render object widget. This is as it says, this is a widget that would have one single child inside it. And it asks us to implement one method, which is create render object. And this is where we need to return back our render object. All right. Let's implement constructor there. Now, this requires a child. So it's a super.child. And that's all handled for us. It's nice. And then underneath this, we'll have the convention is to use the word render, but you can name it whatever you want. We use the word render in front of your widget name. And this is just so that you can sort of know that render Snow Blizzard is for the Snow Blizzard widget, for example. Now, a trick that we can do, so we can actually do render object or render box. And if we were to do this, we would have to probably implement a bunch of the API. We don't care for layout. Right, I don't want to deal with layout. Sorry, I don't want to deal with layout or anything else. We can use render proxy logs, and this essentially says proxy everything, that all the requests to this render object onto the child. And that's that child that we're specifying in our single child render object. All that is done as part of the render tree, so we don't have to concern ourselves with it's going to be named child. It's in here. It's going to be a render box. We don't care about it. It's all handled for us. Right, so let's create a constructor. And by convention, it normally is the case that you want to. Oh, that's interesting. Right, wait. Super. Oh, yes, super. Okay, maybe not. But by convention, oh no, I tell you what I can do. It would be render box child. Brain fog. and then you can do child distant child. But by convention, I'm not even going to do this. I'm just going to show you something. By convention, the idea is that you should be able to set. Oh, is it because I'm using Proxybox? Whatever. Anyway, I won't go into it right now. But by convention, you kind of specify it, but you don't need to because it's actively attached as part of the element process. So don't even worry about that. Anyway, now we want to return a render snow blizzard. So if we now override the paint method of our render box, we don't care about layout. We're not doing that. We're just doing paint here. Now we can also do a custom paint, and we can do a couple of other things. But what we're going to do here is do it all inside our render object. So first of all, we want to get canvas. We get canvas from our context. And we can then say draw a circle. 50 for 50. And paint. And we'll let that paint. Color. Okay. So restart the app. I don't see a dot. What did I do wrong? Oh, I didn't put it in the tree. I'll be wrong. So let's put it in home screen here. Restart. Hey, we have a dot. 50-50 for 50. So if I set this at 100, it would be 50 out on either side. So we have a. Sorry, I mean, you can see the top left, probably. So, all right. So let's say what else do we need? So we want the size. So we actually have the size already. So if we say size is intrinsic to is a internal getter inside of the render box. So size.width divided by, so multiply the 0.5. Let's do this actually. Hang on. If we said size.width and size.height, and then do scale it to 0.5. 5. There we go. It's in the center. Wonderful. All right. So it's kind of boring, but let's get to some fun stuff. So let's randomly choose some dots and place them on the screen. So our render box is going to need a list of particles, and each one is going to be an offset. Yes. And when we get attached to the UI, our render box, we're going to clear that particle list and generate a new particle list and add it to that list. It's 100. Let's do 100. We want to randomly choose these, so we're going to need a randomizer. Offset X and Y position here. So let's say random. All right, so we say random dot next double, random dot next double. Now, by default, this returns next double returns a number between 0 and 1. It's here. 0 and 1, 0 inclusive, 1 exclusive, so 0 to none, whatever. Anyway, now the reason for doing this is that maybe at this time that we attach, we don't actually have a size. Maybe it hasn't gone through layout yet. So we do all our measurements and all our calculations on fractional units. And then when it comes to drawing those points, we should be able to take a loop in here and say particle in particles. And we can take our position, say pos. So we take the size, width, and height. And what we can actually do is take our offset that we already have. So this is particle. And scale it by the width and height. That makes 1, 1, the bottom right. and 0, 0 top left in this case. And then we'll make it smaller so we can see them all. Restart. We have snow particles. So, okay. So where can we take this next? So first of all, let's animate these. So bear with me 1 second. I think what we're going to do here. So if I keep restarting this, we're going to get different positions of random particles, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, right? I mean, for our use case, every time it paints, every time the widget gets reattached, we don't want to reset those. We only want to set them the first time. So the way you do that is with pseudo random numbers. So we set this as seed. So we can say, we can give this a seed value, and then we give it seed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say any number we want. Now, each time I hot reload, it's exactly the same, and that's because the order in which it picks, the order in which we call next double, is always going to produce the same set of random numbers, pseudo random numbers, right? So that's great because it means we have consistency. Now, we could hand the particles to the generator. I think what we want to do is, let me have a think about this. We could actually, just thinking about this, we don't actually need to store do we want to store the offsets? That's a good point. So all right, so because it's pseudo random, we don't actually need to store anything. We don't actually need any list of particles at all. Let's do that. Can we do that in animate? I think we could do that in animate. Yeah. That feels like a good thing to do. All right, so let's try this. So to animate, we're going to need a single ticker provider, and we can do this without creating a ticker, but it means that you don't get any control. In sense that once it goes into the tree, we can't pause the animation using ticker mode and things like this. Like we get a bunch of stuff we can't do. So let's use this single ticker provider state mix in, and then obviously this needs to be, I've done that wrong. It needs to be stateful. Let's make it stateful. Now we can make this not constant, and we can pass in the vsync, and that's a getter that's provided by the mixin. And down here we can say final ticker provider vsync. Right, what did I do wrong? I suppose it. Does it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ignore me. Yeah. This is declared this as a implements ticket provider. There we go. So cool. Right, so we passed that over. Control. It took me a second there. Right, so now we've got a vsync. We pass that across. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So if the render object already exists on the UI, we need to update the vsync, and if it's not, then we need to provide it. So we need to update that lovely constructor of ours, and then we need to override a method that's in here called update render object. This is provided, and it's got a covariant parameter which should be our render object. So we just and then super doesn't actually do anything, I don't believe. Nope. So I'm just going to override this. Now, basically, we take our render object that we got back from the API. Reflection here. Right, render object. And then we can say vsync equals vsync. Okay, so I've just set things up, but we don't actually have this vsync thing. So let's go at that. So as I said, we want we're going to need our ticket provider in here. Now, the reason for this is stateless, right? So although we've got this state widget, ignore that for a second. We create a ticket provider. Our widget is our render object widget itself is stateless. Our state is stored inside the render object itself because it stays attached to the UI, even when we recreate the rerun the build method and so on. So we're going to need to keep a copy of our ticket provider in here, and we'll make it private, and we'll create a setter on vsync. Which now you can see that's now got rid of the error. I'm just going to take a ticket provider value. I'm also going to create a getter for this ticket provider. This is just good convention, and you'll see the reason. So the reason why we don't make it public, just a second. So now we've got this and that. This is just a way of exposing this variable using a getter and setter. And then we also want to take a ticket provider in our constructor that's required. That's named vsync. And then we want to set that parameter locally. Vsync. Why is this required? Right, so that's enough to kind of get us going there. Now, I just formatted it. So when we call set, what we actually need to do here is say if, again, we don't want to re-render when we don't need to. We don't want to reset the ticker or whatever. We don't need to. So we say if the current vsync value does not equal the new value provided, i.e. it's changed, that's when we want to update it. So in this case, we want to register a new ticker probably. I'm going to look at I'm just looking at some reference code I can't show you here that I've done previously. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. All right, so basically, we're going to have a ticker, which is the result of a ticker provider, by the way. Just, this is how we track time. And we want to say if we're currently attached to the UI, then we already have a ticker, so we should cancel that ticker. And then we want to create a new ticker always. And set new vsyncs, right? And then if we are attached, then we need to create a new ticker. This is so that if we're currently attached to UI and we get a new ticker provider, it deattaches and reattaches the new one. So it's a new ticker, and then that would be vsync function. This would be our on tick function. And then we want to start the ticker off because we're already attached. Start the callbacks happening. Right, I'll get the callback method in a minute and we'll sort that out. So it's coming back down here to our attachment. I think we'll leave the particles doing the thing right now. We're going to get rid of those in a minute, I think. Let's create, so basically when we get attached, we're always going to have a ticker and we're going to require it. I want it to crash if it doesn't exist, so we'll just say vsync. Create ticker. Add to our tick function. Done that yet. And then we start it off. Yeah, we can do that. And then on detach, so that's when this render object gets removed, i.e. is no longer required. We want to make sure that we cancel and stop that ticker, because otherwise we're going to get callbacks on our tick method when we don't want them. Okay. He doesn't answer. He doesn't give up. I don't know what this is. I've lost the context on that. Right. Cool. Now let's do our tick method. On tick. Yeah. Now the ticker requires the ticker callback, and that takes the duration of when it's elapsed. This lets us keep track of time, not based on frame count. Right, so onTick is the method that we want to pop in here and in here. So let me explain this just to clarify. So when the render object gets attached, we create a ticker, and when it gets detached, we clean up that ticker and stop it, right? We can actually also send, right? I think it's nullable. Probably should be nullable. Not that yeah, it's just late and it can be overridden. Yeah. It's been stopped to stop. Anyway, and then basically once we're attached, if we get the setter getting called when we're attached, well, that means the old ticker provider is wrong, so we need to stop it and stop the old ticker, update the value, and then create a new ticker and start it up again. So basically, this is what would happen during attach. This would happen during detach. That's all that means. All right. So now we've got that. This gives us. Now we're going to. If I was to print in here, say print elapsed. Let's say this is probably not a good idea, but we'll try it. Let's restart. There we go. Lots of time codes. Right. Let's stop that. Okay, good. So basically, this getting called on every frame of our animation. It's happening right now, but obviously we're not animating anything. All right, so I think what we could now do is we could choose in here to move these particles. And based on the lapse duration from when we last elapsed, we get what's called a delta time. And that would give us how much time has passed between our last tick and our new tick. And then we can take our velocity number, which is pixels per second, let's say. And then that we can divide one by the other. And that would give us how much fraction of that velocity to apply for this frame alone, which is how you do essentially animation. So I could do that right now. I don't think it would be what we want. Well, not at least right now. So what I'm thinking is if we were to move this random number generator and get rid of the particles, so what we can actually do is move the random number generator over to here. And each time we do this loop, we do offset random. What's going to happen here? You're going to watch this. This is going to be blow your mind, probably, right? Well, I hope so. I is less than 100. I plus plus. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to go 100 times. We're going to generate a random number and then scale it and use that for the size. We don't actually have to do scale this way anymore because it's not storing the data, so we can actually just avoid the extra function call there and the duplication. Just do it in line. All right, so that's going to always generate the same set of random numbers, exactly the same way. This person should breathe. This person should breathe the last possible breath. And okay, I must be missing something, some concept. Anyway, so hopefully this generates exactly the same thing as what we expected before. So let's press these down. Let's get rid of particles since we don't need them. I'm going to move my ticker up. Yeah. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's restart. Exactly the same. This is what I wanted. That means we haven't broken anything. And I've just moved the code into here. Now, the question is, can we apply the elapsed time to this in some fashion? Let's have a think. Have a look at some stuff I've done before. I think so.
Maybe something with maybe something with stopwatch.
Well, I'm thinking about like we want to. Let me have a think. So what we've got right now is we've got an increasing amount of time going forward, right? So we could say elapsed. I say that we get in duration, but what we actually want to do is store that. So let's put duration elapsed equals duration 0. And elapsed equals elapsed, and then let's call mark needs paint. So that's basically saying that we update our lapse value in here, and then we're going to say we need paint. This calls the paint again, and it's going to take that. We can now take that underscore lap value and take the microseconds from it. I think that's the neutral value, duration, and then we divide it by duration dot microseconds per second.
Yep.
We have a fractional seconds since animation first started, right? So if we wanted these to fall down the screen and come back up again, and sort of like do that kind of snowfall thing, we can use this as a we can use this as our guide. Bear with me here, just thinking. I'm thinking, so this chooses us a position, right? But the position of the Y, yes, it needs to be based off a random number, right? So this is really like X origin, Y origin. This is where its starting position is at the beginning of time, right? So let's say X origin, this, Y origin. Not sure I want to do.
You're reinventing some code that I did for a screencast about a year ago. I have a moving star field with various speeds and various sizes, and I use offsets. I use sizes. I learned how to use not have to use multiply because I could do it with offset times something. It's pretty cool. So yeah. Yeah. But go check out my Dart and Flutter channel. I'll paste the link in the show notes, and you can go find my tribute to my brother for his retirement from school. Paste that in the chat.
So here's my thought. Okay, let's see if this does anything. Oh,
What?
Let's increase that speed.
Yeah, that's very slow snow. If it ever did that, I'd be scared.
That's cool. So, so let's say we say next double times 2.0 my 2.0 no times 0. So I want it to go off the top of the screen, right? So we want it because they're blinking at the top. So we want to start it just off of camera, and then for it to go 50% off and 50% off the bottom as well, just to account for size. It doesn't make a difference for us. And then that's the white origin. That should work, right? Oh no, we do modulus around it though. So modulus 2.0. Maybe we should take the I know. Let's just see what happens. There you go. There's less on the screen because 50% of all of them are going to be off the screen right now. And we could change that fractional amount. So we could actually change it to 1.5. I don't think we need 50% off the screen. So we'll say 1.5, 1.5, and then 25%. More on the screen, but it still comes off the screen at the top and off the screen at the bottom. So if I was to now scale this, so let's draw a cam. Let's do draw rect, and then the rectangle is going to be offset and size, and we'll use the same paint. So no, that won't work for what I want. Put a border paint.
Goodbye. Even Cheyenne.
Do what? Cyan. Sure. So let's just put this in here. So we should get a border around the outside. Whoops. No. Style. Where's that style?
Can you check the frame rate of the snow?
Yeah, it's 60 FPS. There you go.
Yeah, that's fast.
That's it. That's the answer. I mean, I can check the frame rate, but I know the frame rate because it's the screen is running at 60 FPS, and this code would not run slower than 60 FPS.
Yeah.
I would
If
have
it
to
does,
do a
you
lot
wouldn't be able
more
to do
than-
it. Yeah. If it does, it wouldn't be able to do anything else. I mean, really, this is pretty simple. Just some math.
If it's not smooth on your side, that's probably to do with the stream. I apologize for that. Okay, so we have this border. I've just put this border around just so we can see it. Now, I just want to show people this thing. So now what we can do is say canvas dot save. This saves the state of the canvas. If you do let's move the canvas up. Sorry, I can't remember. Now, if you do a save, you always have to do a restore. They have to be matched. If you don't do this, bad things happen. I have warned you. So save and restore are matched now. So we save and we restore. Now what I can do is do canvas dot scale, and we can scale to say 60%. And there, and if we say canvas translate, I don't know, size height. Yes. All right. Back to this do I have? So there you can see the actual area that we're rendering is the blue area. And as I said, the particles are going off the bottom screen 25% each. So see them coming in and dropping out there. So that's how we're kind of achieving that effect. Is everyone interested in this? Should we carry on? Should we try and get some depth?
Cool. Well, I like it so far.
All right, I'm going to carry on. No one's complaining.
Yep.
So
I still have a bunch of people watching and trying to ask more questions, but I'm sort of answering them as much as I can in the chat.
All right. So let me explain what we've got here. So we've got X origin stays the same. When it goes off the bottom, it's going to come back in on the same X position. So we probably could do something a bit more random about that. The Y position, the Y origin obviously starts off in a random place, but then we add a duration of, we add basically the current duration divided by 10, which essentially this is because seconds is in units of 1 unit per second. That is saying each of the particles takes 10 seconds to travel the 150% of the screen height, right? That's from the very top to the very bottom. So, we could say 1 second and then they would all be like streaming past, right? So we could actually choose to have a random range and they'll be moving at different speeds. So we could do that, right? So we could say like final. We need a way of doing a range. So I think let's make let's draw this ball. Make a function, inline function here that does range, and we're going to say double min, double max, and we want to return a random range. So we say it'd be min plus random double times it can never be smaller than min, and it's going to be the double is 0 to 1. So this applies the fractional ratio. Maybe do this. All right, so now we've got a range function here. And should be able to say final speed range. Saying like what 5 to 10. I'm going to and pop that in speed. Oh, that's nice. Maybe go for a bit higher. And now we've got multiple layers. Maybe we can increase this to 200. 150. Well, actually, they're all the same size. And I think that's what throws this right now, right? Yeah. So I think the speed should also basically engage the size.
Relative to the size, yeah, somehow.
Yeah,
so tiny ones should move slower in the back, and bigger ones should move a bit faster in the front.
Well, let's have a look here. So that's the inverse of what we want. So we just say, since 10 is the maximum, 10 minus speed. So we say 1 plus 10 minus speed, something like that. So then we get at least 1 inside.
That's what I'm going to say the next time I discover a bug. That's the inverse of what I want. That's great. That's the inverse of what I want.
So we can now say, let's do some constant here. Min speed is 3. Max speed is 10. We have a bottom size here. We can actually also ratio this to something that's like what we want.
I'm sure there are already lots of videos already about how to do animation with Flutter. So yeah, you can watch that and watch this. There's plenty of stuff.
All right, so that's achieved the original effect, right? That's very similar to what we saw.
Yeah. I like
so I don't know if there's much more to say about that. I want to find out, can we switch this around? I don't know. I mean, I've never done this before, right? So we're gonna try some things. So obviously, like, this is just falling straight down like rain. So just to be clear to other people, you can just we could just make these like move in a different way. Hang on, let's just try that here. Just show you something here. So this is X position. So we could say X plus sine of think. I suppose it'd be based on the Y position. So yeah, that's fine. We could do Y origin. So let's do this as Y. And then position becomes minus X, Y.
I was just thinking in particular, there's this great video on how to build we had the clock challenge a couple of years ago, and somebody did a 3-part series on what he did to build his particular clock. That might have been Skinner, actually. It might have been. I have to go back and look for that. I wonder if I can Google as well.
Please.
As Simon here.
So let's have a look here. So this is now in a fractional unit, and we'll do the same thing for Y. Let's get this. Right, and we want to say y. We don't have to divide by height. It's a factor, you know. So just times it by pi times. So if you times it by pi, that's one sine wave over the entire height. Yeah, y times over the entire height, right? Let's give it a go. That broke it terribly, so that didn't work. Oh look, they are there though. Right, our sine waves are very, very big. We need they're all following the same amplitude as well. So we want to randomly choose how many sine waves. 5 and 10. We certainly have some things happening, but it's not what I was expecting.
Actually, there's just so many videos that came out of that clock challenge. I'll just put the keywords that I'm using, and you can just go search yourself in Google Video. And here, I can just cut and paste my URL for that. Copy. Just copy the right thing. Let's see here. It does, but it looks like hell. Let's see. Wait, there's probably something I can do simpler here. I don't need all the rest of that. Come on, go forward, tutorial. Yeah, you don't need all my state parameters in my Google search. That does not help you. Back. Go back. There we go. Okay.
That's why I know. That's why my numbers are off.
There. Okay. I put the search. Search that I used. What?
I was trying to work out what's in my.
Yeah. That feels right. That's cool. Sort it. Well, no, that's weird.
Yeah.
It's like they're vibrating. But the big looping ones seem to work pretty well. Yeah, no, that looks weird.
Do you think it needs a randomness to the amplitude then, right? So if we do a range.
Great. And then the real question is, are you staying in sync every time you're calling random now? You're not taking an alternate path accidentally.
No, it'll always stay in sync.
Okay. Okay. Maybe.
It'll just be different, like a different range now, right? Because I'm resetting random on every paint with the same seed.
I understand the process. I'm just thinking if there's any conditionals in there that when you change this, you're changing something.
There's no conditionals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're just blazing through. Simon, you're a genius. That's what you got in the chat here.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
This is practice. You can do it too. So,
yep.
I mean, like, okay, that's like a snow blizzard thing, right? Let's actually do 3D. I want to do 3D.
You only got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes. Can you do it in 2 minutes?
No, I mean, it's up to you. If you need to head off. But
I don't need to head off. I'm just saying we're trying to keep this to 2 hours, right?
Yeah, well, does everyone want me to continue and try and see if we can do this?
They're all going to say yes. They're all going to say yes.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like
these are the people that came here, not just the people watching at home.
It's tough.
I could stay forever. See, there we go. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like without the
box. Oh,
the debug. What we could actually do. Oh, that's a good thing. If debug paint, there's that debug paint. what's it called? There's that debug paint enabled or debug size paint size. Debug paint size enabled. That's the one. Cool. Let's do this. This is fun. So
Okay.
if I wrap this, I just want to show you what people don't know you can do this either. So I'm gonna do this. So
That's a fun
if
one.
if I wrap in this flag, it's that I'm making optional. And we don't need random flags for that. Let's join this together then. All right, so if I restart this, no border, right? That's it in sort of normal mode. And then if we go into our Flutter inspector and turn on debug borders,
Wow.
there you go. So
Awesome.
that flag, debug paint size enabled, is what toggles when you press this button inside the IDE, which can be fun. So if you're debugging your own, oh, let me take this out. Yeah. Can I still hear you?
I hear you.
Good. I still hear you. Good.
And you hear me. That's good. It's nice to be heard.
Apparently. Right. So let's do this in 3D. Let's do that. So size, let's move this over into the middle because we're probably going to need for debugging, we'll probably need that. Why am I off? I am off because the scale has been applied to my translation. But if I put it before, it's not accounting for the width that I'm rendering. I need to divide it by 25%. Yes. So 25% on both because I'm running. There we go. So that's still not centered.
Huh.
Am I
Off by 1 hertz? I don't know. I don't know. It's nice to see you're getting puzzled by something, though. I was starting to worry that you're perfect.
I'm not going to query it, but that works. So
okay, close enough.
Probably not. It's probably just by pure chance right now. So I don't really care that much to go in and try and
okay. Okay.
So all right. So let's try and take this to the next level.
Okay. In -2 minutes. Here we go.
It's going to be longer than that. Right. It shouldn't take that too much longer, though. But I think what we need to do, we need to move this out. So I want to use the vector math library. And the problem is the vector math library, I'll show you right now, is if I now change this, it's not really a problem. What are we doing? Yeah. If I change this to what's the best way of explaining this? Okay, let me just try and bring it. So if I say vector 3 blah equals vector 3 dot 0, I think it's a constructor, and I import that, we're going to get a problem here on colors. This is because the vector math library has its own colors class. So having this inside this one file now is becoming detrimental. So we can't use colors from the two libraries without aliasing, which I kind of want to avoid. So I'm going to create another file, and we'll call this Blizzard, right? This can now have a class called Blizzard. And in here we could have a paint function that take the canvas, the size, and does our painting. And then we can now take all of this, what we did before, and drop that in there. So let's just take this lot and drop it in.
I'm always amazed at how much you edit and then it still works right away. I don't understand how you can do that so well.
Practice? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then
that and match up close parentheses and stuff. I type about 4 or 5 things or cut and paste something, and then I spend 20 minutes trying to match up stupid parens and square brackets and stuff. Always. I hate it. Anyway. The analyzer knows it's broken. Why doesn't the analyzer fix it for me? Come on. Anyway.
So I'm just gonna bring over what we need. Try and refactor it a little bit. So we're going to create an instance.
Yeah.
So now we don't have our elapsed time. We're going to need to bring that across. I think this will be part of Paint as well. We want calculations on this outside of Paint. And we'll set that as part of Paint. Duration elapsed. So we're going to create an instance of Blizzard. Is it double Z? I don't remember. Yeah, okay. Blizzard. Sure. Yeah, I named the package Blizzard. So then I think we'll want to call Blizzard .paint. Canvas, size, and elapsed. So this just extracts out that piece. And we'll just pass the canvas over. All right, so that just pulls that straight out. We also need to make sure that our debug enabled is updated in every frame. So that'd be Blizzard debug enabled equals, please, equals debug size enabled, whatever it was, that one. All right, so that means we no longer have to deal with the widget tree and all this, and we can put over the math64 and all that kind of fun stuff. So this is all the widget tree, and all this is going to remain in here, and we're not going to change anything anymore. Well, I don't think so. And then over here, we're going to import these things. So this is going to be UI. Actually, it's just. I think I'm going to pull this debug piece out. Actually, because it is actually to do with the widgets. I don't really think it's part of our three-dimensional painting work, and I don't want to back out. And canvas. All right, and then over here, we're getting the we're using draw circle right now. That's fine, and the elapse is coming in. We could actually do this calculation outside, and then just put in double elapsed seconds. Again, this is what we're talking about during the stream. This is just me abstracting out that piece now, right? This is me organizing the code. Functionally, it's still exactly the same. We're still calling the same code. It's just pulling the two set bits apart. All right, and then I'm going to, I do want white, but I don't need the pre-made white. So we're going to say UI white equals UI dot color. This as UI. Just trying to kind of keep the two areas of code separated here a little bit more than what we have right now, at least. And this one's an RGB value. So that's 255 and everything. Okay, still works. Yay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, neutral changes are good.
Neutral change. This is what we did. When you refactor, you don't want anything to change, right? Ideally, right? You
Right.
want
Oh yeah.
you're just organizing. You don't actually want to do anything. All right. So
And
now
ideally, you'd have a, continuous integration system with running your test suite in the background as well. But we don't have
Right.
test suite for this. Yeah.
all right. So we want to use the vector math library here. We're now going to the realms of the unknown.
Yeah. Ooh.
So what was that? What was that beginning of the TV show? Outer Limits. We're now entering
Yes.
the realms of the
Yes.
outer limits.
Right.
Oh dear. Right.
Your mind is on a journey. Something. I'm sure somebody's going to have the YouTube link within 10 seconds or so. Except they won't be able to paste it. Only we can paste it. Only we can paste it.
Only we, the chosen few.
We control the horizontal. We control the vertical.
Oh my god. What outer
That's
limits?
that's outer limits. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if I remember rightly, and it's been a while.
Yeah.
There's perspective transform. Here we are. There's a bunch of constructors that do OpenGL matrices and OpenGL related stuff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. So first of all, what we need to do for those that are not aware of how we do this, we need to represent each one of the coordinates that we're choosing here on the screen now with a vector. So vector, it's the same. It already is a vector. It's a UI offset vector at the moment. So what we want to do is take that XY, and now we're going to add a Z dimension. So I think our Z dimension is also going to have to be another random double. Let's X, Z.
I'll translate that's Z for Americans. English to American translator here, right here.
Oh, sure. Come on. Screw off. Come on. And then we'll make that. Since I think we want to kind of have some depth to these things. We're going to do a cosine again of the y times pi times wave. So this is like the 90-degree phase offset of what we were on the X. So that should come out going in and out of the screen as well as it animates.
Yep.
I'm debating if this is a good idea or not. I'm actually thinking right now maybe I should fix this. Yeah, I'm not gonna animate at the very beginning because I don't want. Do I want?
I had to get a cosine once because my credit wasn't good enough. Math geek jokes right here.
I'm thinking let's choose.
Yeah.
I kind of want it based on the speed. So as we said, we're choosing the speed. The actual speed here, though, they're all. I think here's the key, right? When we change, so as we said, we're faking it right now, right? What we're doing is we're choosing a speed, and that's essentially proving a distance, and we're changing the size based on the speed, so it looks like it's deeper, right?
Right.
So we want to remove that component of this now.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to check this in. So if we need to, we can kind of get it back. So I think before I start adding this Z component here, let's. I haven't got any version control set up, so that's stupid of me. But we'll do it right now. Get in there. Get commit. Can we get add on? Commit initial. Okay. Cool. Add everything. Why not? All right. Does that create a master branch? Local master. Let's do. Nothing. No changes. Refresh. I don't know. Like, do I have to? Oh no. Do I have to branch it? I've just committed, but is that? I have no idea. Look, get. Else. Nothing to commit. Working tree clean. So I have got a branch called master. I don't know. I'm going to need it. Sure. Go for it. So, okay. We have this origin. And also we got it coming off the top of the screen, which we're now going to get rid of that fact. I'm going to... That worked for 2D. That was us trying to do something in 2D. And we're now going to bring it back round into the realms of square box. Okay. So now we see we've got rid of those bounds and we brought it back down into the box, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this XYZ becomes a random vector. So let's extend vector. This is a good example of where extensions come in. So we can now extend, say vector 3. It actually might be a vector 3 random, but we need to come from our random. Maybe you can specify. Yeah. I have not looked. Let's have a look first. Vector, let's say vector 3 dot random. Oh, you can. Look at that. Look. And you can give it a random number generator. Spot on. I don't need to do it myself. There you go. Even better. So this is our starting position for this particle. For this particle. So let's move it down into here, and we'll call this origin. So there's exactly the same code as what's below. If we go into random, it's just going to be calling next double 3 times over. That's it. So now, instead of using x, these explicit variables, we say origin.y, origin.x, origin.z.
Yep.
Yeah. That is literally the definition of a vector, right? We kind of group these things together. They're intrinsically tied together.
Right.
You know, it's a tuple as well. That'd be another name.
We're doing 3D math by actually having a single entity represent position or direction in space.
Yeah. So I think I want to just explain this to the audience if they haven't done 3D or play around with 3D before. And that is, you've got when you think about drawing something, especially in UI, you think about its place on the screen, right? You think about its X and its Y. But intrinsically, those two things are tied together to give it a position. So when you talk about the position of something, you're actually talking about the X and Y combined together. And when you talk about it in 3 dimensions, you're talking about the exact same thing, but you're talking about the 3-dimensional space. You're saying X, Y, and Z, they're joined together. So
you have to have a mapping from this 3-dimensional coordinate to the 2-dimensional projection plane now.
So, so now we've got a Z coordinate, but we're not actually using it.
Right.
I don't want to change that Z coordinate now. We're basically applying a bit of maths here to the origin to do our animation. I think it's probably good for us to avoid doing that right now, so that we can concentrate on the projection of these coordinates in 3-dimensional space. So I'm gonna comment these out, and we'll bring them back in a minute. Okay.
Cool.
So right now we're going to concentrate on generating our offset position in 3-dimensional space. So sorry, let me get there in a second. Hang on.
2-dimensional, yeah, right.
You
got to go 3 to 2 somehow. You got to do some math on all 3 numbers to generate 2 numbers.
So, for example, if I say origin.x and origin.y, this takes us back to where we want to be. If I restart, now they're all frozen in their expected boxes. Okay.
Right.
Now, the point here is we want to now work out what these coordinates are, including Z as the depth. We need to project Z into this. So there's a few different ways you can do this. You could, I'm trying to remember now. If we talk about 0 point being in the middle, you can actually divide one number, X, Y by Z and get your 3-dimensional coordinate. However, we want to use the matrix math because we've got a library that does that for us. So, why not? So we will create projection matrix. So let's create one in the constructor here. Now, matrix 4, and call this projection. Why not? And as we're just looking at here, if we want to create, we do set perspective. So we actually need to call this global function. This is getting imported in. We'll come back to this. This is getting imported in from the vector. This is the vector library, and these functions mimic OpenGL's perspective matrices and other things to do our lovely bit of math that we need to do. Let's see here. Perspective matrix. All right. I mean, like this seems pretty straightforward, and this make perspective, not set. So am I using set or make? Set perspective matrix. So this sets an existing matrix where apparently there's a make function, which I skipped past somewhere in here. Yeah, make, which gives us one back, which is what we want. All right, so let's do projection, make. Then it wants a bunch of parameters. So field of view in radians. So
radians. 1. Just put 1.
What would that be? 45 degrees? No.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like, like a third of a view or something.
Yeah, I was thinking that if we want to actually put a number of degrees in there, like let's say we want a 90-degree field of view. I mean, I know that's an easy number to know. I'm just saying, let's say 70 degrees. Then we want to times that. There's actually
degrees to radians function.
I think it was vector math has degree to.
Yeah, DEG to RAD or something. Sounds familiar.
Degrees to radians.
Oh, degrees to radians. The whole name. No reason to make that short like you make everything else short.
There's actually, annoyingly, there is this function called degrees, which converts radians to degrees, and there's radians, which does it the opposite way around.
Yeah.
I think there's actually like a top-level function called radians, so you can do radians.
If only the Babylonians hadn't come up with the base 360 system, we'd be much happier. No, just kidding.
Our aspect ratio is 1.0. We're dealing with a square. Our Z near, how close to the camera we want, we'll get as close as we can for now. And our far will have as 2. I remember our box is a 1.0 box, right? Our volume, our 3D volume.
Yeah.
All right. So it means that it's 0 to 0 to 1. And then 0 to 1 in depth, and 0 to 1 in height, and 0 to 1 in width, right? All right.
Yep.
So, all right, so there are all the parameters. Why is this? This is because this is not late. That's fine. All right. So now we have a projection matrix. We want to take our origin coordinate and project it through the matrix, right? So it's transform, if I remember, transform 3. Sounds right. Origin, get back up position. And then that position, now it's going to be projected in 2D space. Sounds right. So we say pos X, pos Y. And then we need to take, that's a good question. We need to work out what size we want based on the depth, right? So we've got that would be our, don't care about speed.
Now that's dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, do we want, so let's do pos dot. That's going to be transformed as well. Times 10. I think I want to.
Coming up on the bottom of the hour, maybe want to do this rest next week.
Yeah, I don't really want to take it too far.
I think if you take a week in between, you'll probably find a way to solve this in like 3 equations and you're done.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in my head, I'm trying to think about hang on, let's just put 10 here. Okay, well that's good. That's interesting, right?
It's way over there, but that's yeah.
No, but that's kind of interesting that we've got that projection taking place.
Right.
So the idea here will be, I think let's aim for some things we can do next week.
Yeah.
Let's have it so that lots more snow particles, a lot more detail.
Yep.
And I think we want it so that you can control. So we could use the mouse and the keyboard to walk through the snow.
Right.
So that as the snow falls, it was actually going to fall around you. If that kind of makes sense. Which I kind of like the idea of.
Yeah. That sounds great. Ship it.
Cool. All right. Let's park it.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, happy holidays, everyone. Hope your preceding holidays were great, and I hope your following holidays are great. Enjoy.
All right.
We'll see you.
Have a good one.
See you next year.
See you next year.
Yeah.
Ciao. Oh, I forgot the wrong button.